Hey, welcome to the show. We're all about talking with people who didn't let their ideas stay ideas. They took a risk and made them a reality despite feeling not quite ready, and that includes us. So we're asking for a favor. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends if you enjoy what we're doing and want to see us keep making more episodes. It all helps. Even better, leave a comment suggesting how we can improve. We want to keep making quality episodes that you enjoy listening to. So thanks for the support. Let's get into it. Yeah, so welcome to the show. We are a show about independents, creatives, entrepreneurs, trying to learn from people who took the jump themselves and inspire others to do that. So to get going, let's get into rapid fire questions here.
Yes, and I guess just for the audience, like in 30 seconds, I guess, how would you describe what it is that you're currently doing?
So my name is Alixandra Jade. I'm a multidisciplinary artist based out of Edmonton, Alberta. I work between Canada and the USA. I specialize in creating hand-painted murals for businesses, communities, and companies.
Great. That's perfect. Yes, we have some more thoughtful questions, but we like to start off with a little rapid fire, get things moving. So who is your favorite artist right now of any medium?
Of any medium, I feel like when I first started murals, Obey was like the first one that like kind of caught my attention, that bold, crisp style, him coming from like street skate background, stuff like that. But I feel like that was the first one where like I saw a mural and I'm like, it really spoke to me. And I was like finally able to see one when I was down in LA in person. And yeah, it's just nice. It's kind of like a 360. And even just some mural artists when I first started painting that I started seeing on Instagram, seeing their stuff in person. But there's no one in particular that I like idolize or specifically like love. It's just like a lot of different aspects of different artists and like everyone's different styles. And it's so crazy seeing them like even on Instagram. And then when I'm in a city, seeing them in person, what they look like. So yeah, just love seeing like everyone's different like creative styles and how they interpret it.
Yes. Okay. Do you listen to music while you paint?
Yeah, so I will rip through hundreds of hours of music. I'm a big podcaster. Depending like if I'm working with some of my team and stuff, like we'll have the speakers on depending on the environment. If I need to be, it all depends on like the pace I need to paint at. So if I'm doing a lot of like drafting it in, sketching, I kind of got to go of a higher pace music. I'm very indie folk pop is definitely my love of music. So I could have that on repeat and it's just like calming to me, gets me in a zone. But yeah, podcasts all depends on like what type of mood I'm in. If I'm by myself, podcasts are typically on in my headphones. But if I'm working with someone else besides me, we're typically putting music on.
Okay, so what's a podcast? I mean, aside from our podcast, I assume you're listening to as you paint. But what are some other podcasts that you listen to?
I love ones like listening. I've had a hard time like trying to find ones like entrepreneur ones that I like too. So I like what you guys are doing. I would rather instead of like listening to ones where it's like, oh, this is how you should run a business and here's tips and tricks. I love hearing about how businesses got started. So how it's built. That's a big one I listen to. I just like hearing the story of how things got created because some are very intentional and some just happen. Some days I need it where I don't need to think. So I'll listen to like pop culture podcasts like Nick Vile. Things that are like long format. I'm not like when podcasts are like 30 minutes, I can't do it because I'll be on walls for 8 to 15 hours sometimes.
Oh, wow.
Things even like Joe Rogan, just anyone that interviews well. And I don't really care who they're interviewing sometimes just because it's from different areas. I just like hearing how things are put together. Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard. They interview a lot of celebrities, but it's a lot about like how they came to be and how they got started. So it all depends like if I'm in an educational mood or if I just need to like I just need to listen almost like trash that my mind shuts off. So that's when I listen to like my pop culture stuff. I watch a lot of reality shows. It's my guilty pleasure. So,
yes. Well, if you like trash, you're gonna love Taylor and I talking. What is the favorite city that you've worked in?
I like ones where like I can explore a bit. So things like even like when I was in LA, I was in Santa Monica. So just like being able to walk down to Venice Beach, things like that. Even like New York, like I would say like more of a nature person, not a big city person, but I do like that I can just like walk everywhere in there. Kentucky holds like a super special place to me. I've worked there like 2 months straight. I'm going down there again. So that'll be like, I think my fifth time down there. So yeah, certain areas, like when I was in Texas, it's like I kind of just like went to work and came back. So I didn't really explore the city much. Sometimes I have family or friends that come down and join me at the end. So I get to enjoy the city a bit more. But yeah, I would love to go. Like I've traveled to Colorado like leisurely. I would love to do like work down there. So yeah, Utah was cool. Like I've been there before leisurely and just to be there for like 3 weeks and stuff, get some nature. But yeah.
Very cool. What is your favorite movie?
Oh, my favorite movie. Things like 10 Things I Hate About You. It still has a special place in my heart, like from back in the day.
Yeah, okay.
I'm like a big like rom-com person. There's even ones like from my childhood, like Spirited Away. I haven't watched it in years, but stuff like that. But no, big rom-com. I like funny movies. I'm big on like Netflix. I love getting involved in like documentaries I have no means watching. Like I'm not a golfer by any means, but I love Full Swing. I love seeing like those ones where it's like you hear about the sport and then the backside of it. So yeah.
That's good. And do you have a favorite book?
I haven't read a book probably since I was in high school.
That's okay.
I think Harry Potter was the last one I read. I've listened to audiobooks, but same thing. I have a hard time for if it's like an audiobook that's like 10 hours, like it's got to be the right voice. I feel like it's hard listening for 10 hours if it's not like a good voice to listen to. So things like that I've listened to. Once again, like Shoe Dog. I believe that's the Nike one. Yeah. So things like just how things got started, and like that one is crazy to listen to because I used to be a distance runner and I didn't realize like kind of Nike started with more like distant running shoes. So just those are the ones I like listening to, or just anything about like I used to bodybuild and stuff. So like dieting, fasting, things like that. So
nice. Well, that's very helpful. That's our rapid fire round. So now we can get moving here. So I guess the first, if you want to call it deeper question, would be: so where did you grow up, and did you have any entrepreneurs or creators like in your family that kind of inspired you down this route?
So I grew up in Unity, Saskatchewan. So it's a town of 2,200. My parents were born and raised there. My mom was from just like a small town over, but I grew up with like 33 kids. I knew my whole life. A lot of their parents taught us in school. I grew up with my mom volunteering at the school, and then she later went back to get her educational assistance. So very like farm community. My dad, hardworking farmer. He ran a grain hauling business. So, in a sense, my dad was an entrepreneur for sure. My brother's been, he works for a company now, but he's had it where he's been more of like a contractor of himself too, and computer science things. So yeah, that's like, I grew up around it, but I can kind of get more into, I've never had, I would say, the entrepreneurship spirit in me. When I was in high school, I didn't really know what I want to do. I did and I didn't. So it's like I had an interest. I've always been in athletics. I took really hard to like track and field later on in my years. So it's like I knew I wanted to do like kinesiology or business or art. And I definitely had people in high school being like, we can see you being like the CEO of your own company one day. And I'd be like, why would I want that? Like, why would I not want, like, I want safety, I want security, like things like working at like Lululemon head office, that was appealing to me. And I'm 31. So like when I was in high school, I feel like YouTube was just becoming a thing. Facebook was just started. Instagram wasn't a thing. So it's like, I feel like you didn't see as much entrepreneurship as you see nowadays, especially on social media and like the opportunities. Grew up in a town where it's like you stay there or you leave. And, half the people I grew up with are either they left and came back or just never left. So it's kind of like you go to university or you stay in town, which like teach their own. So at the time, my vice principal, her daughter had taken the program that I had taken. And she's like, hey, I would suggest you looking into it because you can kind of get like one bird with whatever, two birds with one stone, however the saying goes. So I ended up taking, it's called a Bachelor Design in Visual Communications and a minor in Business Marketing. So I got my design and I got my business. even like in high school, I was just like, I never wanted to marry an entrepreneur. It scared me to like be with someone to be like, oh my God, I have all these ideas and they don't happen. Don't get me wrong. I love what I do. I would never change it for the world. And like, I can't see myself ever going back to a corporate job. But certain things, like even in university, we had to take business entrepreneurship classes.
Yeah.
You know, it was more about the framework of a business. And my one girlfriend that does like all my website and my like online marketing stuff for me now, we still laugh about it to this day. She goes, I remember you sitting there and turning to me and being like, fuck all these entrepreneurs. I'm like, I've turned into one. And like I said, I love it. But like, I was so just didn't get it back in the day. Like, I was just like, it was so scary to me. I wanted like safety and security. And yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the vision that you thought you were like going to graduate? Did you have one, or you were just kind of going with the flow? Like, did you have an idea of like, I want to be this type of job, or my life will play out a certain way?
So like once I was in university, I always thought like, I kind of knew I would always be in like the creative realm, but I thought it'd be more like a creative agency or digital marketing, things like that. Even though like when I got into university, like I felt in the visual communication sides, I knew I wasn't meant to like stay behind the computer. And I feel like at the prime age of 20, I had a midlife crisis. I was like, this isn't meant for me. Like I was trying to figure, we had to do some project and I did on personality typing. And I'm like an ESTJ. And I was like, I am one of the top non-jobs for me is like graphic designer. And I was like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like I didn't fit in. Right. And then I dabbled over into industrial design and I felt a little bit more better over there. But yeah, when I was in school, so I was like, hey, I need to be in the creative realm, but like I'm a very like external internal person. I just knew I needed to be more around people and stuff. Like I always joke to my girls that like work with me sometimes, I'm like, I pay you guys to keep my sanity, because this stare at a wall for thousands of hours by yourself is a little
Yeah.
I'm not a good painter at home. I'm a great painter when I like work out in the public. For me to like sit on a canvas and work on it for 12 hours in the house, I completely struggle with that, but I could be on a wall outside of my house for 15 hours and be fine. So yeah, I started cold calling and cold emailing a bunch of wedding planners, because like maybe like the event space, like it's a good mix mash of like creative, but I'll be out and about and stuff like that. So I ended up cold emailing a bunch of event planners. I think only one of them got back to me, and like little did I know, she basically was like the number one in Edmonton at the time. So I started doing kind of like rat runner stuff for her. Like I'd set up chairs and tables, things like that. Really enjoyed it. And then she's like, hey, another company, I know they're hiring like full time for like spring and summer, when I was like out of school. And I was like, yeah. So I did that for 2 springs and summers. And I like honestly thought like that was going to be kind of like the rest of my life too. At one point, like I was really big into like the wedding and the event space. And then that just didn't like kind of fell, I would say, out of love with it, just, you know. But I feel like I've always known I was like meant to make something of myself in a way. But yeah, always knew I meant to be in like the creative realm, but never thought I'd be, like I said, working for myself by any means.
Yeah.
Or painting. Like that's a big thing. Like I had such a hard time identifying as an artist for a long time. I'm still like a designer by trade. A lot of people that do murals too, you can kind of like look at their style and know if they're more of a graphic designer or a designer in that sense, or they're more of like, I would say like a fine arts person, just by how they paint and like their style to it. A lot of my stuff, like I work with like corporate companies, things like that. So it's like I have my style, but I tune it to my clients. Like it's very like collaborative process. But I've never really been a painter, even like I had to do it in high school for art classes. I had to do it in university as well. But like I avoided all painting classes, all illustration classes. That's the reason I went over to industrial design when I had to take like more of my design courses. And I've never just like sat down to paint a canvas, which people find freaking wild. Like the thing that scares me the most is a blank piece of paper. Like I love working with my clients because it's usually like, it's like figuring out a puzzle. They're like, hey, we need like three aspects. Like, I don't know how you're going to visually represent it. And I'm like, okay, like put me in a corner and let me figure out what you need. And like, that's the best way I work. I don't like when a client's just like, just do whatever. And I'm like, no, it's gotta like, something's gotta mash with your company or with like the space we're working in or the community. So that was a big thing for me. And just like, I never felt like I had a style. That was a huge, like, I feel like people talk about imposter syndrome. Definitely felt like that at the beginning, didn't have a style for sure. And like now I'm like confident to say like I have my signature floral style, which I do quite a bit. And then I have more of an illustrative style. And I still do other stuff that I don't typically do, but I'm like open to whatever. So when I started painting, I basically would do whatever a client needs. And I still do it. I just kind of like have more of a like a tuned style nowadays.
So when did you develop your style? Because it sounds like you didn't do painting as much in school. Did you just sort of learn kind of on the fly as a client comes to you and is like, I need this vision, and then you just learn as you go? Or how did you go about that? Because that sounds pretty daunting.
Yeah. So how it all started, I was in university, and I think it was, my program was 5 years. I think I started maybe in like the third year it happened. So if a friend of a friend in school was just like, hey, like someone at Lululemon is looking for these chalkboards to get done. And so back in the day, Lululemon had this great idea. They would put these giant chalkboards, and like some of them were like 8 feet tall. A lot of them were like, let's say 5 by 3 feet. And they wanted like the workers to do like the events on them or like, you know, feature products like that. And it's like a lot of work. And like these chalkboards are like, they're porcelain ones. So you have to use these like liquid chalk markers on it. So when I got reached out about it, I'm like, absolutely. Like, I want to talk to them because I'm like, I want to have Lululemon on my resume because I want to work at their head office eventually. So it's like two of us were interested. We went to this interview in like the food court mall in Southgate, talked to them. They're like, hey, this is what we have to offer you. The other guy wasn't okay with the deal at the time. I mean, now at my stage of my life, I wouldn't be okay with that deal. But at the time, I was just so ecstatic to have it. So I started doing like 3 chalkboards a month at Southgate. And then I slowly gained more stores in the city. So I almost had all the stores in the city in Edmonton at one point. I've done them down in Red Deer, Calgary. I've done them in Maui as well. Like head office was aware that I was doing these chalkboards. So I've done over 100 and some for them. So when I'm like working with, it's like one of those things that's like I had a style all along and I didn't realize it. Even in drawing classes, like when we have to do charcoal drawings, and I'll always say like, I can't draw, but I can paint. I never knew how to do it lightly with the pencil. Like it's like you'll sketch in lightly and you can erase it. And I'm like a very heavy mark maker. So it's like, okay, there's the start of it. And then I go to these chalkboards, and with these liquid markers, you can blend them, but you can't because it kind of erases and chips it off. So I had to start working in these color blocking sections and stuff. So it's like I look back and it's like, yeah, my style's even in my chalkboards back in the day. So yeah, did these chalkboards, kind of got a name for myself as like the Lululemon chalk chick. I would get reached out by other people in other cities being like, hey, we like saw your chalkboards you did for Lululemon. We love it. Like we'd like to show you like what we did for this store and stuff. So that was that. And then another friend of a friend was like, hey, she worked for a home builder. She's like, I have a show home in Calgary. Do you paint murals? And I literally Googled how to paint murals on YouTube for 5 minutes. And I was like, I fucking got this. We're good. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I was so excited. So I did that. Like looking back at, it was good at the time. I was happy with it, but I'm like, something like that I did, I was like, oh my God, that would take me like a week to do now. Like I was like, 48 hours, I'll finish that. Like white paint on black. I was like, no. So anywho, went and did that. And I feel like that just like clicked something off. It was just like this high I got. And I was like, there's no ceiling in my life. I started cold calling and emailing a bunch of home builders. So that's where I basically was my first like target group. So I worked for like a bunch of builders in the city doing like feature walls and like nurseries or like kitchens, bedrooms, things like that. So yeah, between cold calling, emailing, and then I got one other big one in Edmonton for an East Indian restaurant. And that was probably my biggest one outside of like house, like bedroom size walls. That one was about like 20 by 20 feet. And I feel like after that's where it kind of like clicked off. And then
go ahead.
In the meantime there, like I had graduated university, the stuff with Lululemon, it was kind of maxing out. So we had to like kind of end our thing there with them. And then, so I was working for a non-for-profit company, Life Saving Society, similar to like Red Cross. So I was doing like marketing and graphic design for them. So I'd work my day job during the daytime, and then on the weekends I would be painting, and they knew what I was doing on the side. And then I'd start taking Fridays off to paint more. And I was like, okay, I got to go down to 3 days a week. So I went my basic corporate job 3 days a week. And then I was painting. And then there was one weekend where I slept on a show home floor for an hour in between jobs. And I was like, I can't keep doing this anymore. And like, love my parents. They're very supportive and stuff. But because my dad, farms and runs his own companies, it was definitely like, we support you, caution to the wind. There's highs and lows with everything. So I was like always cautious to step out. And it like I had some clients being like, what are you doing? Like, why are you not doing this full time? And at the time I was dating a guy down in the States, and I was just like, okay, like if I do this, I can, go see him more. And I always think like, I think that was too like a final push. It wasn't just like, okay, I was busy enough here. And I was like, that just gave me like the final push, I think, too, to be like, okay, it'll give me like a little bit more freedom in life. So yeah, and that's kind of how it all started. And like, I look back, I recently met with someone else that's kind of doing art stuff, and she was telling me how one of her biggest structures or like issues right now is like finding like structure in her days. And I was like, no, I remember that. Like, I remember being like, okay, you're going to go to 6 a.m. yoga class. And I tried being that girl that worked at the coffee shop on my computer. I'm not that person. I'm at my house now. That's where I do. But like, I remember trying to find that structure in my days to be like, okay, I got to like cold call and email and like look for jobs this way. And now it's just like completely more organic, but that's just kind of how it all spitballed. Yeah.
That's yeah. I just want to get one question, because you went the story behind. So you meet in the food court for Lululemon to do chalk. I'm guessing, did you bring a portfolio? Like, how did you convince them that you could do this? And then it leads to the mural that someone, I guess, just saw your chalk work and assumed you could also do murals. Like, what was that process? Because I can imagine that was probably pretty stressful as a newer artist coming into a new field.
So when we went to this like food court meeting, they were like, yeah, show us examples, what you have. And like, the other guy that was with me, he was like all big into hand lettering. Like, he was a doodler. And I was like, I don't really draw. Like, I've never done chalk art. Like, here's some branding stuff I've done, but like, I really think I'm a good fit. And like, they used to call me like the adopted lemon, because people always assumed I worked in the store. And I'm like, hey, I don't, like, but like, here, these are my favorite products. Like, I knew stuff. Like, so it's like, I feel like I always think back and I'm like, I don't know if the relationship even would have been that great if that other guy got it. Cause I'm like, I fit in with their culture so good there. I don't know. I was just so like, yeah, I can do it. Like, it's fine. I'll figure it out. And like, I am still that person to this day. Like, cause I've had other artists, come and talk to me and they're like, well, I just paint butterflies and that's all I paint. And I'm like, that's all good. And like, there's some artists that make complete livings off of just painting butterflies and that's all. I'm the person I like literally cast out the net and was like, I will do whatever and I'll figure it out. And like, every wall I work on now, there's always something that I'm learning. Like, I'm on a construction site 50% of the time now. And I'm like, there's always, every wall has its challenges, even if it looks exactly like a wall I've done before, or every artwork does. But I've always just have that mentality, like, I'll just figure it out and do it. And I'm like, not a practicer. Like, I feel like I recently realized that when someone else interviewed me. Like, I grew up in a small town, played so many different, that's like, I look at people that play basketball and stuff. I'm like, I wish I loved practicing that much. And I'm like, I was more of like a track and field girl. I love bodybuilding. And I'm like, I think I like it because I don't have to practice. I was just training. So it's like, even with the painting stuff, I don't practice. I'm just like, there's no equivalent to me drawing on a wall to drawing on the wall that's like 40 feet the big. So I'm more of a doer. I'm like, I'll figure it out while I'm there. Of course, I go in with a plan, like everything's sketched out on the computer and stuff like that. But like, yeah, I think even with when I started doing, I did chalk for Lululemon, and then someone asked me to do chalk art on the street during COVID. And I was like, okay, like if I'm going to do this, we're going to do something cool. And I was just like, well, we're going to try and do 3D stuff. And so that's one where I did kind of practice, did a test run of it. I did it. And then maybe I did like 10 pieces of chalk art for this. It was like a community campaign about bringing like sparks of joy and stuff. And then I get reached out by a marketing company to go work for Porsche. And they flew me down to Indianapolis Speedway and they're like, you do 3D chalk art. I'm like, yeah, like I did 10 pieces before that. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we need this like 40-foot piece. And like you need to integrate like a real life car in it and like create this optical illusion. I got it. YouTube. I'm like, you know, there's a little bit of panic in me when I'm there, but I'm like, it'll all work out. Like that's just like the whole philosophy of it. And I'm like, I'll figure out a way. Like, I don't know. Like, you know, I've had my little meltdowns internally, but everything's panned out.
It does seem like YouTube is like the key that unlocks so much entrepreneurship in the world, not through like inspiring people, but just like allowing people to look up how to do stuff on the fly. Because I've heard this from a few people where they're like, yeah, I just kind of like watch a YouTube video on how to do this like particular task, but that's actually hilarious.
Yeah. And it's just like painting, like, I mean, there's different styles of painting. But I like even if I look at, let's say like my signature floral style, it evolves naturally over time. Like I look at the ones from 4 years ago and they're definitely like, you know, the depth isn't the same. And it's just like, even just like the colors, like my eyes gotten better at picking colors, things like that. And just like translating into my own thing. So, yeah, I've always been a doer. And I just feel like even in high school, I remember like not trying to toot my own horn. I'm like one of those girls. I'm like, I graduated with a 90% average. I'll be like, I'm not smart. I just like, I'm a hard worker. And I remember sitting in this class for like, I think it was chem. And one of the girls was like, well, like, how did you figure it out? And I was like, I don't know. I just like followed the steps. And she's like, but like I don't understand. I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me either. I just like did what we were supposed to do. Like, you know, like, I'm like, I just made it work. It made it work. Like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just, I've like the hard work is such a big thing. Like it's more than just the art too. So.
Yeah. One question I had, because you mentioned it, that you were into track. And like, I mean, I think that specific sport, I started doing it somewhat recently, and you can ask our mutual acquaintances. Like I was slow when I used to, so I'm not fast, but I like doing it. But like the practices are long, the practices are hard. It's a lot of grinding. I assume bodybuilding is kind of similar. Do you think that kind of like helps you as like you're an entrepreneur and working for yourself, that kind of like forced you to get comfortable just like continually putting out?
Yeah. And it's like, I look back, I used to do all these, you know, it's like we go for an hour and a half easy run. Like I used to love running and I just don't have it anymore. Like when people say like bodybuilding's hard, I'm like, try freaking running for 4 hours straight. Like I've done one marathon. I'm like, I don't have it's such a mental fight for that. But I don't know. I've always been like, I would say like I have my few close friends and stuff, but I've like always been like a lone wolf person. Even I was always that kid growing up. I'm like, I don't want to do a group project. I want to do it all myself. Definitely an overachiever. Ask my mom, like, even when I was a kid, I'd make drawings and I'd be like, can you, like, you know, little fashion girls, I'm like, can you rank them 1 to 5? And she's like, there is sometimes I had to take that paper away from you because, like, if it was not perfect, you would want to, like, rip that thing up. So yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like, too, I grew up around parents that were hard workers, especially, like my dad's a farmer. You work when work's there. Like I've seen him get up at 3 a.m. just to, you know, spray fields and stuff like that. So it's like you work when work's there and you got to do what you got to do to get the job done essentially. So, but yeah, the track and field thing, like I said, that was just like I was a distance runner. So it's like a mind game. And then I was in a small town. I had a coach from the city. So he would send me programs. So I was always running by myself a lot of times. And yeah, the bodybuilding thing, I think it's like a little bit of competitiveness in me as well. But definitely been, I mean, I can be a team player when I need to, but I was always more attracted to like solo sports for sure. And just kind of like doing my own thing.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I mean, I think something you had mentioned earlier about how you said you had a tough time kind of coming around with identifying as an artist. And it sounds like, you know, you were working in the event space and then kind of like the artist gigs kind of came pretty quick. You had Lululemon, then you were doing murals and things like that. So do you remember, like, was there anything that you had to do to kind of like convince yourself that like, okay, I am an artist now, like this is who I am, and then kind of lean into it? Because I think, you know, with trying to start anything where it's usually a pretty personal thing, whether it's a business or art or anything like that, it's one thing to like figure out how to do it, but it's also like another step of being comfortable, like identifying with that thing, especially if you're known for whatever, like you were working in the event space. So do you remember, like, was there anything you did that kind of helped you get comfortable, going forward as like, I am an artist, this is what I do?
I think it was just like more, I had a hard time identifying with it because there's just like, I hate being like the stigma around an artist or like, and no one's ever been like, oh, like starving artist to me and stuff. Like I've always gone in like, I'm a business first and an artist second, and I will die on that hill. And I hate the excuse too about like, people are like, well, artists aren't good at business. And even when I was in university, like we had to take an accounting class and they warned us like, take it in your younger years because a lot of the design students do not do well with it. And if you want to do masters, it'll affect your GPA and stuff like that. I wasn't the best at it, like the accounting one, but like my whole thing about that is it's like, the plumber that ends up running his own business too, like he's probably not a businessman by trade either. Like there's so many things like that. So like I've always gone in business first, artist second. And I think it was just like that whole stigma about an artist I didn't want to identify with. And I'm like, I'm a designer by nature, but yeah, I am an artist now. And I feel like too, just because I never thought I would be a painter, like I thought I'd be working in a complete opposite space. And like even my one girlfriend that does my website and like my ads and stuff, we went to university together. She was an oil painter, way more like artistic on that sense. And she fell in love with like digital marketing and stuff. Like we joked that we're like in complete opposite areas we ever thought we would be in, but like we give each other jobs kind of thing and help each other out and stuff. And like, it's just like crazy how life works out.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, you just, the stigma is what kept you from kind of going in, but you kind of, again, by focusing on business side of things and like keeping that a priority, it kind of allowed you to like, I don't know, get more comfortable in the space, it sounds like.
Yeah. And like, I think because the business side that's what got me enticed about it too. And like, yeah, I honestly just think it's like the stigma is like why I didn't want to identify as like an artist to start with. And like now I'm completely fine and I'm fine to say I'm a painter and stuff like that. But yeah, there's just so much more to being a designer. And like I said, some people, there's so much business to it. Like I was grateful enough, I think like 2 years ago, like with my small town, they do this Hall of Fame or whatever. So it's like you have to be graduated 10 years and someone nominates you for it and you get put up in like the hall and stuff. And I guess they like reached out to my mom and was like, yeah, someone nominated Alix. And so my mom had to do all this write up about me, and they like, bless my mom, it like kind of makes me like emotional about it. They had me as just like under the arts category, and mom's like, I made it very clear in that write up. She goes like, it wasn't just because you're like artistic. She's like, it is like your business sense. And like, don't get me wrong, like I'm learning every day and like I do not know everything by any means.
Yeah.
But she goes like, you did not get where you are today just because of like how you paint. She goes like, I see you like bust your ass and like what you do behind the scenes. And like, I was like, I wanted to say like art and business. Like I'm not just in the art industry. Like I would not be where I am today because all the other stuff I do to get these jobs and to put myself out there and like my business practices. And like, that's another thing, like every artist to each their own, but it's like, I've seen not good business practices from other artists. And like, I never want to be that person. Like when I started, like I got my business license. I got my lawyer right away to put up the contracts. I got my accountants and stuff like that. And like my lawyers at the time were like, he's like, you're either going to like do this now, or he's like, you're going to come to me in 3 years and like someone screws you over and we're going to have to backtrack. So I was like, I've tried to do like preventative actions. And like, I'm lucky enough to have a dad that has ran his own business and stuff. And, my parents are very much guiders. He never wants to tell me like how to run my business or anything like that. And like, we're in completely different fields, but it's so nice to have someone where I can bounce things off of to be like, this is what I'm thinking I'm doing, or like, this is, yeah. So just having someone else to like talk business sense to that has best intention for me.
Would you think it's fair to say like you're productizing your work? So that's something I've seen like artists that are really successful. They seem to have again that business sense and they blend the two together. And it sounds like that's what you're describing. And I've heard the tagline like productizing your work, because it goes to also like how you market yourself, but also like the sales models that you're following. Have you like, would you agree with that? And like, how did you kind of, obviously it sounds like you're a doer, you trial and error, but like, is there like kind of a method that you're using for like, this is how I'm blending the two together and how I'm pitching my work to clients? Because it seems like just selling, there's word of mouth, but then it's also like, you also need to convince a client that this is worth doing.
Yeah, and I feel like back in the day, one of the that first wedding planner I worked for, like she had such a big impact on my life. So like she came into this wedding space, she got married, da da da, and then was just like saw this like niche market. She came from a business background and she came in like a firestorm and like kind of took over and stuff. And I always respected her so much for that. And it's just like I loved like when I went to her website, it was like at the time, I think when she started, it was mainly just her, and like now she has a team and stuff. But it's just like she always came off as like a business first, and like I said, a wedding planner, second in a sense. It's like you go there, it's professional. Like even when I started my website, I was like, I want to come off as a business, not just like here's an artist and here's like my bio, and like nothing wrong with that. That was just like how I wanted to be seen, and like, so yeah, and that like I don't know if that's like the productization of it. Like I feel like it naturally blends together, and it's like I said, I work with a lot of developers. I'm on construction sites most of the time now. Like for someone to tell me, like I feel like I get, people compliment me on my creative and stuff, but like when I have someone and I show up, especially on trade sites, and they go, "You're a hard worker." Like we see that, like I take that more to heart. I've had a client that had worked with two other artists before and had like terrible experiences, and he runs multiple businesses in the city, and he goes, "Alex, I really thought like it was just me." And he goes, "You changed my like perspective like of what artists can be and like what they are." And I'm like, that things like someone can tell me I'm creative like night and day, and I'm like, yeah, like whatever things. Like that stuff, when someone talks about like my work ethic and like my business ethic, that's what means a lot to me. I feel like it blends naturally together. I feel like some people don't expect when I send them a 6-page contract, but yeah.
So I guess similar to what Taylor was saying about productizing yourself, like you've got a pretty sizable Instagram following. I think you have like 13,000 followers. Was that something you intentionally tried to build? Did it just kind of like you posted your work, or because I imagine that probably helps you get business as well. So was that like something you thought a lot about and strategized, or was it just kind of like you were showing your work and people wanted to follow as a result?
Yeah, so I would say like my page is like business casual. So
Yeah.
back in the day, and I feel like if you go back, you might find some more like personal photos, but like I would say like 7-10 years ago, I kind of decided to kind of keep some of my private life private. And when I started at Lululemon, it was like when Instagram kind of just started. So it's like for people to have public pages wasn't as common. And the girls were like, you should like, because I started posting on my Instagram, they're like, you should put your page to public so like people can see it. And I was like, like felt like a little like, I don't know if I want everyone to see my stuff. And then because I had more like personal things on there at the time. And then yeah, I started like posting all the chalk stuff. And then I eventually kind of took down a lot of like my personal stuff. And then yeah, no, it's very like intentional, I would say, and thought out how I post and stuff. But like social media, like you feel like you figure it out one day and the next day you don't. And I know there's things I could be doing to get more followers or to get more views and stuff. Like I'm not on TikTok. I don't have a desire to do like a lot of like trendy reel stuff, which I know I should be doing. Like I do some reels, but I don't do a lot of things. But it's just like what I feel comfortable at my life and how I feel, I would say, genuine and authentic is like how I come off on my social media. But yeah, getting like jobs, like social media, my Instagram, decent amount of followers. I always say like my Instagram is my street cred. People go there, I'm like, oh my God, you're good at art, or like you have some followers, like things like that. I do get like the odd client from there, but a lot of it is like word of mouth, Google searches, me still like cold emailing. There's like contractor bids I apply to. So it's definitely a combination of things. But at this point in my life too, it's just like a lot of times these projects are getting bigger and bigger. So I love now that I'm getting more involved with like developers, where it's like I get contact about jobs that are 2 years out, and I feel like at the beginning a lot of murals are like afterthoughts. In Canada, it's becoming more of a thing. In the States, I feel like murals are more integrated still. And it's like starting to pick up in Canada, but like that's kind of like my goal is like not to be the afterthought. Like I want the murals to be, as a building's getting built, like, yeah, we budget money for this stuff. So that's been fun. It's just like, I'm talking about projects that are for like 2027 now. It's like, people reaching out about those things. So
You mentioned before you work for Porsche, which is very cool. Also getting several other American clients. How did that come about to get so many of them? Is again just word of mouth? Because that's a big jump for people to go from local to more international. Because that's definitely some of those name brands were like the Indianapolis.
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So a lot of the ones down in the States, Google ads, they find me on Google. So we like target down there. And then with like Porsche, for example, it's like Porsche was the client, but it was a marketing agency. So I work for, a lot of times those were like marketing agencies or the middleman. So it's like, especially when it's events and stuff like that. And just all depends on the client. Sometimes the marketing agency is like, the client wants us to stay silent. So it's like, I don't mention them at all. Sometimes we can say it's a collaborative thing between me, marketing company, and the client. But then the day, the top tier client is the top tier client. So there's certain ones where it's like, let's say like X is the main client, but then I'm like a sub contractor, but it's like, we're all working for that client, and that's who we all say is the main thing. Like people don't want to see the in between sometimes. So yeah. But and then like the first one I got in the States, it was like a contractor bid. You just submit your portfolio a lot of times and you kind of throw your ring in the hat. And I ended up making top 3, and then I got selected. So that one, and then I had to go through the process of like I have like a visa for the US. So I have my work visa that I just have to renew every few years and stuff like that. So like it was for me to get into the US, like was a big deal for myself, like a big goal. Yeah.
So how did the visa thing work? That's actually seems like a big hurdle. Like I imagine did you think about that before you put the bid in? I think Porsche was the first one, or like, did you just like be like, oh no, I need a visa? How did you go through that? Did you sneak across the border with paint cans?
So my first one was in 2021. It was in Kentucky. I thought out of all the places, I was like, the first place I'm going to get a job might be like LA, New York, whatever. Kentucky is my state that keeps on giving to me. And I just like I said, it holds a special part to me. It was one of the contractor bids. I got selected. It was a larger sum of money. And then the visa thing, I just kind of had to figure that out. So it's like I had a job waiting there for me, but as an independent artist, it's not like you're getting hired onto a company. So I talked to someone else, and we had a friend that she was a trainer with like UFC. So she had worked down there, and I asked her like what type of visa she's on. And then I talked to my lawyers, and they hooked me up with lawyers that deal with that stuff. So I hate the name of it, but I will say it's an O1B visa. So it's called extraordinary talent. So it's like anyone that's like athletes, like comedians, film, artists, things like that. You're basically have to prove that you're good enough in your country that they need you down the US to Canada visas are crazy. I feel like a lot of people think it's like easy to go back. It's quite, you have to be very specific in certain lanes to get a visa. I mean, there's multiple different ones you can get, but I've known people that have been like kind of struggling for a few years to get one in their area and stuff. So I feel very grateful. And that's where like I value all of my clients, but I'm very lucky to have brand names like Lululemon and like Porsche and Mercedes and Amazon. So when I applied for this stuff, it's like I had all these brand names underneath me to support and validate that I am like a high itemized artist here. So
yeah. So what percentage of work would you say you do between like in the US versus Canada?
Depends on the year. Like last year, I think I only had like 1 or 2 jobs. And then this year I don't have as many in Edmonton. It's been more like I was just in Vancouver. I'm heading down to Kentucky next week I was just in Texas, and then did a site check before in Kentucky. So it's like just all depends on the year. Like my goal basically is to have a home base and to fly more for work. So like just yeah, it depends on the year what's going on. But like last summer I was with the Stollery and we had like a 2 month long project, and it's just like I don't know if that's just gonna be like it was quite a large project here. And I'm like, if that's just like a one-off for Edmonton, or if we'll start seeing more of that where they put more money into like the development and see the value that the murals bring to spaces. So
Yeah, and so you'd mentioned that you do a lot of work, like you're on construction sites quite frequently. So are you like outdoors when you're doing most of your murals?
indoor and outdoor. So like here in Edmonton, we like I would say outdoor seasons like April to we can get away to October. But I've painted in May where like it started snowing on me, and I've painted in October where I roasted. Like I was like
Yeah,
tan like I've never tanned before. And then so it's like indoor and outdoor. Like I get so many people asking, like, what do you do in the winter? And I'm like,
that's what I was
well, it's
wondering.
like, yeah, like yeah, January is like kind of quiet. Like there's always stuff coming in, but I'm like, I was painting indoor murals for the longest time before I got outdoor murals. And like in 2020, like when everything happened, I was supposed to have kind of one of the biggest years. And then, everything shut down. I was like, oh my God, this is not going to be a good year. And then it was my best year yet. And it's gone up from there. Like I ended up getting, I don't know if you've ever seen like Manchester Square in Edmonton. It's kind of like this Holland Amsterdam looking strip mall. So like the build of it, like some people love it, some people don't love it. Ended up, I had been tipped off that they were building this place. So I kind of kept emailing them and bugging them. And yeah, so I ended up getting 2 walls on there. And the one is just like on a very high traffic area. It's the first one I did like my floral style on. And it kind of just went a little like, I don't want to say viral, but like there's been thousands of pictures taken in front of it. Like if you have a female in your life, she's probably taken a photo in front of that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So things like that. It's just like just depends on the project. I've been on construction sites where it's like we were in a tunnel that was exposed to the outdoors, but it was in the winter, so they like blocked off the sides to keep us heated in there. But yeah, no, it's interesting. Like I said, I'm fine. Like I like working from different sites and stuff like that. So
Yeah, yeah. So
everything from like it's dusty to it's completely finished is where I paint.
yeah, yeah. So one thing that's I feel like it's come up a lot in this interview is you've talked about how you've cold emailed and cold outreach. So you said that you did that with the wedding planner. Sounds like you did it for this recent or the mural you're referencing. So is that something like that was ever hard for you? Or like is that just something you just feel totally comfortable? Like I imagine there probably is a lot of rejection. Like anyone gets rejected when you're cold
Yeah.
outreaching. I guess like is that something you worked on, and like how much would you attribute like the business and success you've had to just like taking the agency and doing those cold outreaches?
I feel like I didn't think much of it until I was like, I remember this a few years ago, I went out for lunch with like 2 of my girlfriends, and she goes like, a lot of people like wouldn't be able to do that, and just like the rejection. And I'm like, I was like, whatever, like they don't answer. I'm like, to me, it's more like, I'm like, if they can't take 2 seconds to respond to my email, I was like, that's more of like a character flaw on them. Like I have a whole thing, like I will follow up 2 to 3 times. And if they don't, I'm like, I'll let it go. Like, I think I sent out like 1,000 emails, and it's like, yeah, you're not going to hear a response from like all of them, but it's just like, my whole philosophy is like, it takes like 100, all it takes is one yes out of 100 no's to make something happen. And you never know who's looking or who answering it. Like the job I did in Vancouver recently, that was a cold email. I got that one because they were just, I was like, hey, like I'm staying in your hotel. Like it looks like a cool boutique one. Like wondering if you've ever want to add some murals. And they're like, actually, like, yeah, we'd love to switch up the one we have. So the rejection
Interesting.
thing's like never been an issue, I would say. And like I said, I have that philosophy, like, give me 100 no's. Like if my mom's always said, and people are like, it's so mean to your mom. I'm like, no, it's not in bad intention. She goes, you're good at getting the door slammed in your face. And I'm like, she's like, you will take like 4 doors slammed in your face to get the right one. I'm like, oh, fine. Like I don't really take
Yeah,
much to it.
you're
Like,
like Jehovah's Witness
yeah.
dream.
Yeah. But which I like, yeah. So it's never been a thing where I'm like, it's like rejection. It's like frustrating when you don't get certain things that you
Yeah.
think like when you're so close to it. But for someone not to answer, I'm just like, oh, that's like on you guys. Like I have literally, I haven't done this in a long time, but I have literally guessed at emails to get into bigger clients. Like when it's like, it's hard finding emails for like companies sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, like you find the format of their emails and you find the VP of it. And I'm like, okay, this is how it is. And I'm like, I got one job that way.
So
And the guy found it in his trash, like in his spam months later.
that's crazy. So are you still doing this? Are you like,
Yeah.
you're still sending cold emails frequently?
I still send cold emails, like it, or there's like clients that I would love to work with, like, you know, certain brands and stuff. But like I said, sometimes you just don't hear back. And like to me, emailing, I mean, other artists may have different opinions on this. To me, emailing is the best format for me to call. People are going to be like, oh, I want to see it, right? So it's like I send it with like a quick glance portfolio, things like that, and like my resume if they want to see it. But yeah, like some years I'm like, I don't send as many. And the next year I'm like, yeah, if I have like a down month or a few weeks, I'm like just yapping off like emails and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I know it's funny how
Yeah,
it's
that's
like you come
inspiring.
across
Yeah, that's cool.
certain.
Was there ever a time though where you felt like giving up, or like you're just so frustrated that you're like, why am I doing this? Like, did that ever hit you during your career?
I feel like there's definitely waves, but like I said, I got warned about it. And like my dad was like, yeah, like he understands. He's like, yeah, I totally get like farming goes like this, right? And it's like certain times there's just it's just quiet, or it's like especially with construction, like, oh, things are supposed to start in April. And I'm like, oh no, we got a 4 week pushback. And you're like, okay. So it's like I'm always telling clients, I'm like, I'm booked till X date, but like I have a moving schedule because things are supposed to get started here, but it's like I have gaps that open up. I know there's been times where you're like, oh, like maybe got to get a second job, but like, no, it's been good. Like I've been doing it full time since 2019, and just doing this solely. So yeah, it's like I said, you ride the waves, and I'm like, I feel like I always set new goal. I'm like a goal board person, so
Yeah.
like every year I kind of try to chart that off and like have different goals I want. Like my next goal is to get like I want a job or like a mural outside of like North America. So like that's my next thing. I'm like, I want something in Europe or like Australia. And like once again, I'm under the whole philosophy of like other artists do it, why can't I? You know, and like I have no shame to admit like there's thousands of more artists more talented than I am, but for some reason I get to do what I get to do. Um yeah, so very grateful for that. But it's just there's so much to it. Like I said, there's the art, you got to be, you know, someone good at art. There's the business aspect to it. And even just like how, like, I have people like, I have some mural stalkers, like some of my clients, they're like, oh, you're painting here. Like, we'll come by and like see you, right? So, like, if I'm painting public and I love it. And like, I tell when I have my like helpers with me, I go, I do not care who it is. If someone looks at me, looks at you, and I don't care if they're like, they, you know, someone on the street or someone wherever, like you say hi to them, and like you, if they want a conversation, you take those 5 minutes to talk to them, because you don't know what that 5 minutes is going to mean to them. Because there's some artists that will not like, I mean, they're in their zone, they're doing their thing. Like once my artwork is on the wall, it takes about 3 to 7 layers of paint a lot of times. So it's like we're just doing after it's like the thinking is over. And it's like I've had people reach out and be like, oh my God, thank you so much for taking time to like talk to me. I'm like, thank you for like going out of your way to like come see me. Because I'm like, I just think like if I was a kid and someone like stopped on their project to talk to me, like you just never know who you're impacting. And like I budget that in, like when I do external like murals, and even when I'm doing like, let's say live chalking and live painting, like I make sure my clients know, I go, you're hiring me as an entertainment service. Like I will talk to people, I will entertain them, and that is budgeted into my time. Like I do hustle and all this, but like that makes people's day. Like they want to feel like they got to know the artist and they got to be a part of the mural as well. So like I said, every artist's different, but like I refuse to be that person that like won't take the time to engage with someone that takes their time to like be like look at my stuff. So
Yeah. No, do you have a dream client that you would want to work with? Like in number one, be the coolest client.
it's just like I feel like stuff that I use, like I'm like, yeah, like I wear a Garmin watch every day, and I have no shade to like I will take products in my pictures. Cause like one day, like
Yeah.
it's like the paint I use, it's like I would love a paint. They'd be like, I would solely use one paint company if they like reached out. Like they've sent me products and stuff before, but no one's like solely been like someone like Red Bull would be super cool. I'm an energy drink girl, but it's just like they're a cool company that do cool events, things
Yeah.
like that. Even just like a airplane, like one of the airlines. I love it's just like external murals. Like I would love to do I have done is like a 4-story building, but it's like I was when I'm in Vancouver, there's a few of them where they have some of the skyscrapers painted. I'm like, that's more, I would say, like my dream thing is to see my artwork amongst a bunch of buildings like that. But yeah, it's always like interesting to get more like value every client, but something like that where it's like
Yeah.
it can be seen from such far distance. Yeah.
Yeah. No, cool. Was there, you said you've been doing it full time since 2019. Since then, has there been one moment you can think of was like the biggest win, or like one moment that make you felt like you had arrived and it was just like a really memorable win for you?
Yeah, I think there's been like little moments, and then you look back. So it's like I'm one of those people where I'm like, yeah, I remember when I did my first $200 job and I was excited about it, and then the $500, and then the 5,000. And I remember when I sent off like an estimate that was like 10,000, I was like so scared about it. And I'm like, it's like you send off like half, they don't all go through and stuff, but like things like those little moments where it's like the how I valued myself and my artwork, and those how I used to be so excited about little projects like that, and they just keep escalating. I feel like the first one, the East Indian restaurant, because it was like 20 by 20, that was my biggest one. I feel like that's really started the ball. And then the US one, like that was like such a major moment for me. And then when I got the New York one, I didn't really think much of it. And then it was more just like other people being like, oh my God, like, you're painting in New York. Like, that's a bigger, I feel like other people made me feel like that was a bigger deal. I was like, I don't know, we're just going there and paint. And then just things like I have chalk art. There's like a 30-foot long chalk art in like the NHL arena in Edmonton. Like, you know, people that are hockey people eat that up. And I'm just like, I watch hockey, but I'm not like the biggest
Yeah.
follower, but things like that. I feel like certain clients to other people mean more and stuff like that. Or even like I worked for Joe and the Juice recently in New York, but they had contacted me from their European office. So that's cool to me because like it was my first European client that I was painting for in New York. So it's like these little moments where I'm like, I don't know. I'm always like, when will it be enough? In a sense, like I keep setting more of these goals for me, but like at the end of the day, I love the projects where I get to go away for like 2 or 4 weeks and then I get to take some time off. And that's basically the goal, is to have these larger projects to create, freedom essentially in my life as well. So
Yeah, no, that's very cool. And I just want to be cognizant of time here. But if you were talking to someone, it sounds like you like to take time to engage with people while you're doing your art.
yeah,
If someone was talking to you and they were thinking about like they wanted to launch their own thing, whether it's, become an artist, start a business, but they were kind of having a tough time like taking that step or taking that leap, what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about doing that, but maybe is having a tough time like, taking that swing?
I feel like there's like, you see the people that are just like, I just like quit my job and then they go into it and like figure it out. And then there's ones like me, I'm like, proceed with caution. And I just like eased out of it. I think it's just like, I always think about like, hey, when I have kids, it's like, when people ask you, like, what do you want to do? Like, when you're older, kind of thing like that. And like, I came from such a small town. Like, I thought being an interior designer was such a far off dream. I was like, oh, that only happens in Toronto or like Vancouver. It's
Yeah.
like social media wasn't as big then. So it's like even like I was into like fashion when I was a kid, like doing the drawings and stuff like that. But I'm like, I just think about like when I have a kid, I'm like, what type of life do you want to live? And like kind of like based like what you want to do, like what are your passions and stuff based on that. But like if someone's like trying to take that leap, it's just like sometimes you gotta do your dues to do your dues. And like I did my dues back then, and I'm like, I can't work 12-hour days the rest of my life. And it's slowly gotten these bigger projects and I get more time, which is what I want. But like work doesn't stop sometimes, and that's just how it is. And like I feel like some people are gonna be fine with that and some aren't. Um, so it's just like I feel like do your dues. My whole other thing is just like don't wait for opportunities to happen, like make them happen. Like don't wait around for them to happen, make them happen. So it's just like that cold emailing, that like reaching out to people, like social media. because I'm like, I feel like if I'm slow on work, I'm like, what can I be doing more to get work? Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, woe is me. I'm more just like, how can I always keep getting ahead in this sense? Um, so I'm like, I have a hard time sitting still sometimes and
Yeah.
relaxing. I'm the person where it's like, I feel good if I'm on my like, we can be sitting outside, but like, I want my laptop on me. I
Yeah.
like kind of like going through things, trying to find some stuff. So yeah, just doing your dues and like putting in that work. And like I said, looking and making opportunities happen, like not waiting around for them. And then just like, I feel like the more, like I've never had a regular job either in a sense. Like, and I grew up in a household where my dad farmed and truck hauled and my mom stayed at home and then she was a teacher's aide. So it's like, I didn't grow up with like, here's all your benefits and here's your pension. And, like all
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that kind of like 9 to 5 mentality. My dad worked when he had to work and stuff like that. And so just like growing up around that and like, I don't know what it's like to have not free time, but like when I was in university, I was like so focused on that. And then I was doing Lululemon on the side. And then when I worked my other job, I was like doing my work on the side as well. So it's like, I feel like I've never been the person that lived for the weekend. And like all due respect, like some people love that. I just, and then I started hanging around more other people that either work weird shift work or they work for themselves as well. And it's like you surround yourself around these people and you kind of get to see like what type of life you want to live. And I've decided this is the life I want to live, where it's like I would rather ride those highs and lows. And like, yeah, there's risk and reward that comes with that. But to create my freedom, like I'd rather work 60 days straight to take 2 months off. And
Yeah.
that's just like my whole outlook on it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great answer. Yeah, I guess before we wrap it up, we want to give a chance for people to check out your stuff. So where can people find you?
Yeah. So Instagram, Alexandra Jade. So Alixandra Jade, Jade. Same if you just like Facebook, Alexandra Jade Art and Design Co. Website is alexandrajade.ca. So even if you just type in Alexandra and if you end up spelling it wrong, just type in mural artist and I should pop up. So
Perfect. Perfect. Well, we are so appreciative that
yeah.
you responded to our cold email. And it was fantastic to learn more about
Yeah.
what you do and your story. And it was really inspiring. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.